Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming along today. I wanted, if we could have these slides up, please, just to have a think about sustaining our leadership over the longer term. Thanks, Fee. This is week 13 of lockdown for as those of us who are at home will know, and it can feel like it at times. But as lockdown eases, at least in some respects, want to just have a think about how we sustain our own leadership and how we sustain our teams into the future. Particularly, what do we want to keep? What's the learning that we've got over the past 13 or more weeks that we really want to keep? David earlier was talking about de-icing the wings and getting action much more quickly, fewer meetings, fewer papers. Is that some of what we want to keep? And is that some of what will sustain us over the longer term? The question I want to start with is, how will we know when the future actually arrives? Because if I could have the next slide, please. Oh, that one, yeah, thank you. I mean, we talk about the future, we talk about a reset, but it might actually look a lot like the present. I sometimes feel as when I'm at home, I feel a bit like an isotope, that's got a half-life. Those of you work in cancer services will deal with isotopes on a regular basis, but basically they're elements where some of the atoms have a different atomic mass and they decay really slowly. In some cases, they have what they call a half-life. And I can sometimes feel a bit like I am decaying at this very, very slow rate. I have this kind of half-life. What Lindsay Hanley, writing in The Guardian last week, was talking about being in a kind of twilight zone, which is neither one thing nor the other. And I think it feels like this, really, because of where we are at the moment. If I could have the next slide, please, Pete. Thank you. This is borrowed unashamedly from Katrina Lake and her presentation a few weeks ago, where she was talking about phases of COVID-19, and particularly in relation to psychological safety and mental health. And she helpfully divided them into three kind of areas: a preparation, an active phase, and a restoration phase. But I wonder if we are in some sort of strange area between the active phase and the restoration phase, simply because of the way that new infections start sort of coming through the system. We still, according to ONS, have about 4,500 new cases every day. So it never feels like we have decisively left the kind of the active phase and we can start on the restoration phase. And that is, by the way, that is the second wave you can see over there on the right-hand side. So if this red circle really is our new normal, what can we do? Well, I think actually there's quite a lot we can do. If I could have the next slide, please, Fee. Thank you. First of all, we can look after ourselves. This is really important. It's not some frippery. It's not some indulgence. There is a reason why. If you can remember as far back as getting on a plane, in the safety briefing, they always say, fix your own mask before attempting to help anyone else. You cannot help your teams. You can't sustain your teams if you are literally not in a fit state to do so. And many people I know will be working absolutely flat out. I know people who go from one Zoom meeting to another seemingly all day long. And I do wonder whether when they ever actually do their work. And I'm always drawn to the American writer Meg Wheatley's line, "The role of leadership is to create islands of sanity." What can we do to create some of that sanity for ourselves? What can we do collectively to push back against some of this, so we have some time to think and we have some time to prepare, and we're not just running from one meeting to another? I appreciate There will, I never met anyone who ever said cancel a meeting. There will always be a need for them. But if there's anything you can do to push back and get some time for yourself, please do. It's not a frippery. It's not indulgent. It's part of you looking after yourself so that you can look after your teams. And I will draw attention here to the health and wellbeing team's dispatches. Lots and lots of resources here to help you. There's the How Are You Feeling Today toolkit. There's how you develop your own psychological PPE, how you develop your own psychological support, how you notice the danger signs so that you can do something about it in advance. Lots and lots of support available around mental health and well-being, as well as support around physical health. And I know many people were talking about sort of playing tennis or going for walks. This is all really, really important. So please look after yourselves first of all, because that is how you, at the absolute foundation level, sustain your leadership. And then, and only then, can we look after our teams. Sophie, if I could have the next slide, please. And when I talk about sort of sustaining our teams, I'm not talking about a kind of homogenous mass here. Not everyone is the same. Some people will be flat out. Some people will have been flat out for 13 weeks and will be knackered. Other people will be at home, but will also be knackered because, as people have mentioned, they're doing homeschooling, they might be doing shielding, they might be doing caring duties. There might be 101 things that they're doing at the same time as trying to hold down a job. And then there is stress that comes through understimulation, you know, seeing the same walls every day, seeing the services that you really want to give cancelled or postponed because COVID is still the priority. So different people will need different things, which is where really listening to what individual needs comes in. So there's all these things to contend with. But again, you're not on your own here. There are numerous resources that can help. Some of you of a certain age will remember Comic Summer Annual. So see this as kind of the Beano bumper summer annual of resources for you, but for the NHS and social care. There's things here that you'll see in the dispatch on Thursday and in our sort of final version in a couple of weeks' time around keeping connected, around managing people virtually, around providing psychological safety, what compassionate leadership really means in these circumstances, how you build the capability of your team. And again, as people were mentioning earlier, I think Ricky was mentioning, looking after people's mental health and well-being. I just want to flag up a couple of things, please, if I could have the next slide. We've mentioned these things before. They're really worth a revisit. First of all, there's the Hay Guide. How are you? This is an NHS resource, but it's applicable much more broadly. And it has really practical advice as to how you actually put a decompression or well-being room in your place of work, reminding you of things about check-in and check-out, how you have well-being meetings, coping strategies, how you care for and support staff who are shielding or absent for other reasons. And again, going back to what David was mentioning earlier today, what are the lessons that you want to learn and that you want to keep? And what's the stuff you want to jettison as well, because actually you don't need it anymore. And Helen, a few weeks ago, introduced a video of Ben Murphy, who used to be the commander of the Red Arrows. He's now the commander of the Blaze Aeronautic Team. And amongst other things, he was saying, actually, even in the heat of battle in the Second World War, squadrons would still be rotated off the front line. People would be given time to rest, time to recuperate. If you can do that at all for your teams, especially at the moment, it is absolutely the right thing to do, because if we are going to sustain ourselves over the long haul, we can't expect the same people to be giving the same level of effort day in, day out without a break. The other thing thank you, Fee. The other thing I particularly want, that's right, the right one, thank you. The other thing I particularly wanted to draw attention to, obviously at the moment, but actually it goes beyond Black Lives Matter. This is something that has been staring us in the face for a very long time. We know the figures are out there, and there are lots of resources to help, and very specific resources. So, for example, I haven't mentioned it here, but bereavement support for people from a Filipino background who have been particularly badly hit by COVID. There's practical stuff you can do here, and I think the emphasis here is on practicality and action. Practical toolkits, how you mentor people, what inclusive leadership actually means, listening to people, risk assessments, all those calls to action. Please do take them. They are out there. Because we are going to need, I think, all the help we can get. Now, the next slide, please, Fee. No, I'm not, believe me, this is not here to depress you in any way. What I'm saying is actually we are going to be facing deep-seated and complex issues. Even if COVID had not existed, these things around structural inequalities and what has been happening over the past few years, and the economic and social divides will all still be here, with COVID as the icing on the cake. So it would be reasonable, absolutely reasonable, to feel, oh my God, what am I going to do? But actually, I want to leave you with this. Thank you, Fee. There's a lot we can do here, and lots of things we can achieve, especially if we work in adaptive ways and if we work together. A lot of what we've learned is how people can come together very, very quickly and can adapt to new situations. So if we can keep anything, I would suggest adaptive leadership approaches, taking small steps, grounding things in real work, what actually works here, experiments, trying things out, amplifying what works and jettisoning what doesn't. And keeping your narratives going, keeping those stories going, that communication going, and changing the perspectives that people have. And in our final bulletin at the end of this month, in our final dispatch, we're going to flag up resources about real and lasting change. There's an NHS guide to large-scale change. There's work around sort of relationships and how we might want to build those, and how through working in COVID, people in the NHS have created these open cultures, have looked to continuous improvement. So there are things we can do to sustain ourselves, to sustain our own leadership, and to build and sustain and support leadership capacity and capability amongst our teams. I think I'll finish there. Thank you.